Hello everyone, it's John Pollock and Wai Ting, live from our new studios, which technically, Wai, this is your office.
This is my edit suite, yes. This is one of the many studios of our new place. We have moved out of the broom closet at our old building and into luxury.
Where it's brighter. Now, you haven't introduced me, though, to your guest, Wai.
Oh, yeah.
You've invited onto our video blog here.
Well, this is a very special edition of our video blog because we actually have a guest today for our special episode. And what a guest. Headlining this weekend's Extreme Rules pay-per-view.
Wow.
Wrestling John Cena. In the main event, the talk of the town. Mr. Brock Lesnar.
Oh my goodness, Brock Lesnar is here.
Hey.
This is the reason that stand-up posters were invented. Look at Brock Lesnar, looking in fine shape. I know a lot of people have been questioning, what kind of cardio he's going to have for a long wrestling match on Sunday. He looks very fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you think he'll pass his medicals?
I hope so.
Yeah, he will. We should just anyway.
So Brock Lesnar is going to sit in with us for this video blog. But let's get into some questions. Right?
Right.
We've got Daily Brennan kicking things off, and he wants to ask us. The phone's back. We've all had to defend our wrestling fandom. How do you two respond to questions like, how do you watch that stuff? Let's start with you, Wai.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very good question. How do I respond to it? You really can't. Oh yeah, you can. I don't treat that question like it's a big deal. For me, it's just like if somebody asks that question, I just know that they don't understand it. They don't understand it on the level that me and maybe other fans understand it. And I do my best to explain why I like it. I tell them that I like to watch wrestling from a producer's perspective, not necessarily. It's not like I watch it and I believe everything, but it's like I watch it and I like to analyze how well they are trying to make me suspend my disbelief. I watch it like I watch The Sopranos. That's the basic answer.
I think it's always such a loaded question when someone asks you that I just really, all I see is, my God, this is like something that could become an hour-long argument, or it could simply be a 10-second, well, it's not for everybody, but I watch it. And that's it. And you move on. We move over. Who's this? George C. wants to know, who are your current favorite professional wrestlers? He asked for top 3, but time is of the essence, George C. So is there one person right now, Wai, that you're enjoying watching the most?
In the WWE, I suppose you could point at...
What do you mean you suppose? This could be someone in TNA. This could be someone wrestling on the independent circuit in Kentucky.
Okay. For me, maybe Daniel Bryan right now. Obviously, CM Punk. Those are probably my favorite two at the moment.
Daniel Bryan and AJ. Those are my two favorite right now. They're great together. Favorite past professional wrestler?
Bret the Hitman Hart.
Let's go with Randy Savage would be one of mine. I don't know. I always hate these questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why we're going to move on.
Don't ask.
We go to Steve Kassan. This is stemming back to the Garrett Bischoff question from the Wrestle Reunion podcast, but in all seriousness, if you guys were presented in making Garrett a legitimate superstar as a serious competitor, given all the baggage he carries and the IWC accepts, what would you guys do?
I would not have him appear on TV without at least a year or two under his belt of developmental, first of all. Secondly, I would not put him in this role. I would put him as, somebody who's starting up. In fact, I think it's so hard already to get a guy over if you know that he's the son of somebody. It's just, especially the son of an Eric Bischoff. I think I would make him first of all develop his own character and see what his personality fits. I felt like, we look at David Flair when he first came in, and it was nothing. But when he started to develop the whole psychotic persona, I think that's when he started to gain some appeal.
I agree. I think it's really easy to kind of shed all the negativity that Garrett has right now. I mean, I see way more upside in Garrett Bischoff than I ever did with David Flair, who just looks so out of place on a wrestling show. I mean, send Garrett down to OVW. When he's ready, send him over for a tour of Japan that is going to give him instant credibility amongst the hardcore fans. It's like working in Japan is this rite of passage, it seems like. Send him on the Colt Cabanas podcast for a week. Make this guy become likable to people. It's very simple. And then when he's ready, bring him up. And I ditched the Bischoff name. I think he should lose the Bischoff name rather than Eric. Because I think it's just a negative connotation for what you're trying to achieve right now as a top babyface. Moving onwards here to Matt Terry. In my opinion, UFC's countdown shows and prime times are better examples of sports entertainment than what WWE is producing in 2012. Do you think the WWE could improve their product by experimenting with their formats to create a more reality-based product, as well as embracing some of the UFC's best bits? I would argue they've been doing a lot of that of late, specifically with Brock Lesnar, and in somewhat of what they were setting out to achieve with the Cena Rock special that didn't exactly hit the same way a countdown
it was
does.
Completely.
But look at all the Lesnar elements that have worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, that whole video that they have run about 2,000 times. I mean, if you replace the name John Cena with Frank Mir, I mean, that was right out of a countdown special with those clips and the highlights.
I think everybody knows our stance, like on these shows. Like, these countdown shows are my favorite shows, period, on television. So of course, if you ask us, the WWE could learn a lot, because those things always work. You know, like those countdown shows, what they do is they introduce me to a new character that often I don't know anything about. Like I think about that Eddie Wineland versus Uriah Faber. Who's Eddie Wineland? But they explain this guy. I don't necessarily remember the story now. But
his brother was in a fire, and it was just this human element to this fighter who beforehand was simply a name on a piece of paper for most people with a Sherdog record. And by the end of it, you really were intrigued by this guy, Eddie Wineland.
That was enough to make me want to see him try to achieve his dream of winning this title, for all those reasons that were mentioned. In half an hour, they do that. And they do it so effectively. So I absolutely think the WWE could learn from that.
What is your favorite book, wrestling or otherwise?
Not a big reader. I don't
what about comics?
I wouldn't say I really have a favorite either. I'm still relatively new into the hobby, so I don't like these favorite questions. I'm really sorry. I'm always afraid of misrepresenting myself. And
Catcher in the Rye.
That's your favorite?
Sure.
Okay.
What about the Bible?
Yeah. Hot topic on the message boards.
Amazing. If you folks are not sure if God exists or not, that answer is going to be solved on a wrestling message board.
That's right. Join in on the discussion. lawradio.proboards.com.
Jordan Smith, if there was one item or trend that you could do away with that for whatever reason is popular, what would it be? For me, it would be ripped jeans. Do people think they make themselves look badass by wearing them?
Not anymore, but at the time, maybe. I don't think that's a trend anymore. Is he saying like trends that used to be trends? Like
current trends. Let's think about current trends.
Ripped jeans have not been a trend in like 20 years.
Hair gel. I think that's got.
Is that a trend?
I think it's an unfortunate. I know, and I took care of that problem.
What's a trend? I think the affliction trend is dying down. That was a big one.
That entire look for anyone over the age of like 35, I think, is gross.
Don't get me wrong. Like I know a lot of people that wear affliction, and I have a lot of friends that wear affliction. If you're wearing affliction to support, a UFC fighter, to support your favorite fighter, I think that's great. But as a style,
looks like shit.
Yeah, I'm not with it.
I know Wai is a big fan of the Pride Fighting Championship. What are some of his favorite memories and fighters of the Pride era?
I'm actually not a big fan of Pride at all. I've watched maybe a handful of events, so I can't really answer. John's probably the bigger fan.
There's so many. From the middleweight Grand Prix from 2003 was one of my favorite tournaments ever. A number of the Bushido tournaments as well. I mean, that was really a big staple. The Sakuraba Vanderlei Silva series, as much as I look back in hindsight, I really did enjoy those fights. Very hard to just limit it in terms of one specific fight in Pride that I was a big fan of. But I mean the Bob Sapp against Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira from 2002. That was a gigantic fight at the time. That was the Shockwave show. Had about 78,000 people. That one comes to mind as a great fight to go out and search for. Do you guys consider Lex Luger to be one of the worst workers of all time like many others do? If so, why? We're talking about a guy who had good to great matches with Dan Spivey, Ron Simmons, and Tommy Rich, for goodness sake.
I personally don't.
No.
Not of all time.
In fact, we'll probably talk about this more on Review Away next week, which is headlined by Ric Flair and Lex Luger, Capital Combat 1990.
I mean, have you heard people say that?
I will never regard Lex Luger as a strong worker.
But far from the worst, I'd say.
He could certainly be carried by the right opponent.
And there's a lot more to pro wrestling than just, of course, the work rate. I mean, I felt like he had a lot to offer in many other areas. I
think his mid to late 80s, early 90s run within the NWA WCW tends to be overlooked, where he was, I think that was the peak of his career, both drawing and in ring-wise. Are you guys fans of Ken Shamrock?
Who isn't? Love Ken Shamrock. What is he doing today?
Not a whole lot. He's not retired, though. He's not retired. Okay. Who do you guys think had the more impressive career overall, Bret Hart or Randy Savage?
Well, I'm biased. I mean, Bret's my childhood favorite.
I would say that I hate comparing careers. It's like impossible to do. I think on an international level, I think Bret Hart had more widespread appeal, especially when he was the guy in the mid-90s. Overseas, WWF did very well. But Randy Savage, I mean, when he passed away, that was top news for tons of outlets out there. I mean, Randy Savage was one of those names that certainly was above just simply the wrestling world.
I'm curious why that person asked those two particular people.
I don't know. Maybe they can answer that for us. This question is for Wai. What's the best video editing software to use on Windows 7? And which software do you use to edit videos?
I'm a Mac user, so I use Final Cut when I'm at home. Final Cut 7, not the new, what is it, Final Cut X? Yeah. At work we use PCs, and I think we are on Windows 7. We use Adobe Premiere CS 5 or 6, I don't know, whatever the latest one is, and 5.5, CS 5.5, and that's been great. I actually prefer to the Final Cut. It's you could use any type of format. John edits these on Adobe Premiere, so it's simple to use. The best part about it for me as a Final Cut user is that they have presets for shortcuts. So if you're an avid user, if you're a Final Cut user, you can go to Adobe and choose the Final Cut keyboard preset, for instance, and all your shortcuts are the same. And I'm a big shortcut guy.
Who will win between Brock Lesnar and John Cena on Sunday, Wai?
Let's ask. Yeah.
How many buys will this man do?
We kind of talked about it before. I mean, I'm guessing somewhere.
I'm going to go higher than my original estimate. I think I said like 215. I think it's going to be a bit higher than that. I'm going to peg it right now, 240.
Okay.
240 is my worldwide total.
Yeah, I'd say about like 230-ish.
All right. It's going to wrap us up, folks. Thank you very much for your questions. You can always leave them. We'll have a thread up permanently for these questions at lawradio.proboards.com. We've got archives up there of the Law, of Review Away, our past interviews, lots of stuff coming up. Sunday night, the Law, 11 p.m. Eastern on TSN 1050 Toronto. We'll be chatting about Extreme Rules and lots more, including your phone calls. And Wai, you're off to Montreal.
I'm going to Montreal, yes, this weekend.
So you're going to miss Extreme Rules.
I'm going to miss it, unfortunately, but I'll be back on the drive back, probably listening to the Law to get all my recap.
Wai is going for a weekend of judo competition in Montreal, and that's going to end things there, folks. So follow us at Wai0937 at Law Radio, and you can go hit up liveaudiowrestling.com.